So back towards the end of August, I dropped a video, Is Canon Still the King of Color Science? And in that video, I had images from Canon, Sony, and Nikon, and I wanted you guys to vote on number one, what was your favorite? What did you prefer? And number two, which image went to which brand? And so I really wanted to see two things. Does people still gravitate towards Canon files? Are they really still the king of color science? And two, would people really be able to decipher which image belonged to which brand? Because so often people will say, oh, I knew that was a Nikon file, or I knew that was a Canon file. And I really question if people truly know that, or is it once you know, you say you could tell, you say you knew, but would you really be able to tell? Didn't plan on taking this long, but here we are. The results are in. And without further ado, let's get to it. I'm first going to put all three images on the screen, and before I label which is which, let me give you the percentage breakdown of what people preferred. So 27% of the people preferred image A, 19% of people preferred image B, and a whopping 54% preferred image C. I'm not going to make you wait any longer. I'm going to put them on the screen right now. So as you can see, image A is Canon, image B is Sony, and image C is Nikon. So 54% of the people preferred the Nikon file. But here's where it gets interesting. Now, I will start with Nikon because more people preferred it, and then I'll go down. Let me give you the breakdown of what people thought was what. Now, of all the votes, 68% of the people thought that image C was the Canon file. So 54% preferred it, but 68% of all people thought that the Nikon file was actually the Canon file. And 16% thought that it was the Sony file, and 16% thought that it was a Nikon file. So a majority of people actually thought the Nikon file was the Canon file. Now you really have to wonder, did people prefer that image because they thought that it was Canon? See, there's always bias in what we think and all of those things. So it definitely makes you wonder, if people knew that it was a Nikon file, would they have still said, I prefer that one? Who knows, but that is the numbers. Now moving on to image A, which is the Canon file, 54% of people that voted for that one thought that that was the Nikon file. So very interesting that those two shifted, where a lot of people thought the Nikon file was the Canon file, and a large number of people thought the Canon file was a Nikon file. So that's very interesting, and I'll touch on that in a minute. So 54% thought that the Canon image was Nikon, 24% thought that it was Canon, and 22% thought that it was Sony. And then moving on to image B, which is Sony, this is interesting as well. 62% of people thought that the Sony file was the Sony file. So it does seem that people are fairly good at deciphering the Sony file. 30% of the people thought that it was the Nikon file, and 8% of people thought that it was the Canon file. So those are the results, and I would definitely say they were interesting and not necessarily what I was expecting. I would have thought that more people would have gravitated towards Canon. To preface, I am a Canon shooter. I have been a Canon shooter my entire career. So I found it very interesting between the Canon and the Nikon file, how people thought those were what they were and what people preferred. So those are the results. Now, from my point of view and my perspective, I actually preferred the Nikon file, which it feels blasphemous for me to say that because, as I just mentioned, I am a Canon shooter and always have been a Canon shooter. But I just found the Nikon file skin tones to be ever slightly more pleasing to me. Now, the Canon file and the Nikon file, they were very, very, very close and very similar. To my eyes, I was definitely able to decipher the Sony file, and it just still has a little bit more of a greenish tint to it than what I personally would prefer. So I still don't really care for the Sony colors. But the Nikon and the Canon files were very close. But in my opinion, for me, that Nikon file just had a slight edge over the Canon file. Now, this definitely gets magnified when we consider all of these images in Lightroom. Now, as I mentioned in that original video, all three of these files, they were RAW files, and I opened them in the native software that the manufacturer preferred or recommended. So that way I could get as true to color as what the brand manufacturer and what the camera was able to do. So when you take the Canon file and you compare the Canon file from the Canon DPP software versus Lightroom, you can see a stark difference. The file has much more of a green tint in Lightroom than it does in Canon DPP, and both of these are using the camera profile. The colors in Lightroom for the newer cameras just simply aren't good, even with the color matching profiles. Now, in its defense, it wasn't difficult to get the Lightroom file to look very similar to the Canon DPP file, but it really is extra work that doesn't have to be necessary. Now, in comparison, the Nikon file looks pretty much exactly the same. So I don't know if Nikon provides Adobe with information to be able to really nail down those profiles, or if they're just easier to do backwards compatibility. I'm not sure, but the Nikon files in Lightroom and in the software that they recommended, they really do look the same. And so even for that reason, I'm sticking by my stance of I do prefer the Nikon colors. And I think this is, even being a Canon shooter, I think people really need to start to respect Nikon for what they do, for their color science, for their cameras, for the functionality of their cameras, for the price point, for their lens selection. Nikon is absolutely a player in this game. For a long time, people thought that Nikon was done, they were finished, they were going to disappear, and yet here they are, they're still here. And in my opinion, they hold the crown for color science. Now, it wasn't a landslide victory. I don't think that they've ran far leaps and bounds away from Canon, but I do think the crown does have to go to Nikon, in my opinion. And I'm not, Canon's got to step their game up and take that crown back. So before I do the giveaway and draw for the winner, let me mention that there were 4 people who got it correct 100%. They got all 3 brands correct. And I'm going to put their usernames on the screen right now. So congratulations to you guys. I would definitely love for you guys to comment down below and tell me in honesty if you really could tell which was which and why you were able to decipher, or did you just kind of guess and you just so happened to get it right. I want you to be honest with me. Okay, be honest. But I'm really curious if you truly were able to tell, or if it just was kind of a little bit of I could tell and a little bit of luck. Let me know. Let's get to the drawing for the Brevity Jumper Backpack, the Canon Concept ND filter, the Canon Concept CPL filter, and 2 Weelight pocket lights. So let's get to that drawing right now. So I'm going to let's see what we get. And the winner is Homesteader 1983. Homesteader 1983. So hopefully you're watching this video. Send me a DM. My handle, AnthonyToglife. Send me a DM. Let me know that you are the person. Now, just so you know, you are going to have to go through a little bit of validation process so I know that you are this person. because most people's YouTube handles aren't necessarily the same as their Instagram handles. And I can't be scammed, okay? So, Homesteader 1983, congratulations. Definitely DM me. I'm going to leave it open for the next 48 hours. So if I do not hear from you within 48 hours, I will draw again and announce another winner. So congratulations on that one. So congratulations to the winner. Thank you so much to everybody that participated. This was, for me, an eye-opening thing, and it was not what I expected, but it is what it is. And again, I tip my hat to Nikon. Nikon, you've come a long way. I guess I shouldn't say a long way, because Nikon and Canon for a long time, really, they just would leapfrog each other. So it's great to see that Nikon is still in the game. Definitely put some respect on their name. Obviously, big shout out to Canon. Still love Canon. Gonna rock Canon for who knows how long. Although Nikon, if you want to, if you want to send me a little something, hey, hit me up. I'll put some respect in y'all's name for sure. I've never shot with a Nikon, so this was eye-opening. So Nikon, if you want to send your boy something, holla at me.